Hello.
Hi,
Hi, Sandy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent.
Good.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for taking some time today. I'm so proud of you, all the progress that you've made just in really a short period of time. I think you're even finishing a little earlier than 90 days. I think you got started maybe around 10 weeks ago, I think. Does that sound about right to you?
Yep.
Yeah, it's great. And what I love about you and how your journey has been is you've just been so serious about the work. You've kind of been like, okay, cool, yep, I'm ready. Tell me what I need to know. Let's do it. And today, I just want to take some of the lessons that you've kind of learned, and really, our intention is just to kind of share a couple things that can help somebody who's in a position similar to where you started,
Okay.
just so we can kind of pay it forward a little bit. So maybe what would be helpful is, can you just take a minute or two and share a little bit about what was going on in life at the time that you and I met? How were you feeling? What were you thinking? Kind of what was the headspace you were in?
I was really depressed. Um, just didn't feel like I had a lot of options. I felt stuck and had high anxiety about my job, my home life. Um, had tried conventional therapy and it just didn't work. And when I read about your program, I liked the approach that you used. So it was kind of nothing personal, but sort of like a do or die kind of thing for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, and it worked. So
Right.
um, I like your approach in terms of talking about, I I am not depressed. I had a problem with depression, putting things in the past and doing. And I mean, you did a lot of really good work with me in terms of helping me realize it wasn't even necessarily, that wasn't my really true problem. My true problem was the low self esteem and what led to that. And, but I never would have realized that because everybody around you, your typical doctors and psychologists and everybody, oh, you have depression, oh, you have anxiety, like the stuff you talk about.
Mhm.
So your approach helped me to realize that that's just a diagnosis and it's not even necessarily for me. It
Sure.
was dealing with the low self esteem and the problems and the barriers that I put for myself.
Right. Right. I'm curious. So I really appreciate that background. When you say low self esteem, to me, the thing that I'm always seeing in a client's life before I think they really see that they're missing it is really it's the lack of fulfillment. And that's kind of what I think you're talking about when you say low self esteem, right? Like almost like we use this metaphor of feeling like you're trying to constantly play the game of life, but you're never able to win. Is that
Right.
kind of what you're referring to?
Yep.
Yeah. And so can you maybe share a little bit about that? Because if you're willing to maybe share a little bit about like what were the common intrusive thoughts that you were dealing with, because different people, there's sort of different buckets of anxiety, right? Some people are really worried about their health. Some people are really worried about getting in a car accident, but you had, a really specific type of anxiety and intrusive thoughts that was in a different category. Can you share a little bit more about that? Like, what were the worries that were going through your head all the time?
That I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't doing well enough at my job, that I wasn't teaching people well enough, that I wasn't performing well enough, that nothing that I did met the standard that I needed to. And no matter how hard I tried, in my mind, I just wasn't meeting that standard. It didn't matter. I just wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
So,
And you were basically on that treadmill, constantly trying to reach that point for how long do you feel like you were doing that? Was that years?
well, I've been a nurse for 30 years. So,
Right. Long time. Huh?
long,
And you were doing how many hours a week when we first got working together?
when we first started working together, I was working upward of 60 hours a week.
60 plus. And your doctors were recommending to do much less because of your own health condition, right?
Right.
Right. So you were doing kind of that classic thing of putting yourself last,
Right.
thinking, okay, if I can fulfill this role and fulfill these expectations that I think these people has to have of me. Yeah. So, and I'm curious. One of the big breakthrough moments I remember was I forget the exact language that you said, but I think I had asked you a question of like, well, why are you working so much? And you said something to the effect of, well, that's what's required. That's what my boss needs. You kind of had this belief of my boss would never let me not work as much as I'm working.
Like,
And
no, I could not say no.
could not say no. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I wanted to pull that out because I think a lot of people can relate, that I can't say no. I got to please, I got to be perfect. I got to achieve, all that stuff. And then what ended up happening when I proposed to you, like, hey, why don't we practice like setting some respectful boundaries and putting yourself first? Because I think you were surprised at how people started reacting around you.
I was, and I actually ended up pulling back on my hours and basically telling my boss no. And the first time he just was kind of like, what? And I
right, not used to it.
Right, because I've always been the one that he could come to fix things or to take on a project or to do things. And I've never said no. And I just was like, finally, I said, I'm at my limit of what I can handle. And I'm already working more hours than I should be. I can't take on anymore. When I finish the projects I'm on, I need to stop. Right. I need to just stop. Right. And he was okay with it. And that really shocked me because I'd never said no before.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, now you still have a great relationship, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's not like things have been damaged or anything like that. Oh. So that's really great. And I really want the people listening to really understand this because I think so many people listening would be able to appreciate the whole, I can't say no, got to be like this. I got all these expectations I got to live up to. But I mean, in your case, it got to such an extreme level. I mean, you were in the middle of the program and didn't you see you had to go to the ER? You had been working like so long, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you finally reached that. And was that the do or die thing? You mentioned that was kind of the headspace you were in coming into the program. Was it that you knew your physical health was on the line, or what was the thing that made you say, okay, I have to get to the root of this?
Because I was just reaching that point where I couldn't do anymore, and I didn't know how I was going to manage to do anymore. And if I couldn't figure out, initially it was if I couldn't figure out how to organize myself and my life better to do more. But then working with you, realizing that it wasn't that I needed to organize and do to be able to do more. It's that I needed to set those boundaries to be able to say, no, I'm doing enough.
Sure. It's so funny you say that because so many people come into the program with me and they're thinking, oh, this is going to be great. This guy will help me reduce my anxiety. And then I can work 10 more hours a week. I'll be able to put even more on my plate. I'll be the superwoman I always told myself I have to be. And then they realize once they get in that the real process is about putting your self-worth first, and really learning. Well, actually, let me hear it in your words instead of my words. Like, so what you did believe before, right, was something in the vein of, I got to be like this. I have to be superwoman. I got to be bulletproof. I got to be able to work as much as I have to. I got to put everybody else first or else I'm not good enough. Is that fair to say that was kind of the headspace you're in? All right. And so that creates the anxiety, that compulsion of I've got to check all these boxes. So what shifted? What are some of the key beliefs that you have now? What have you replaced that old way of looking at the world with?
The realization that being exhausted, you work 10 times harder to do that much less. And that by nurturing myself and doing the program, like my morning routines and doing all of that and being rested, I actually feel more efficient than I was before.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you're actually, so this is the difference between like trying to please everybody on the one hand, which is impossible, versus really living a life that's oriented towards contribution, of course.
Right.
But in order to really contribute, you've got to fill yourself up first.
Yep.
Which is a distinction I had to make for myself many years ago too, because I was kind of working around the clock and not taking some time that I needed. So that's great.
You have to love yourself. You've got to love yourself and like yourself and be okay with yourself. And then you can contribute to others in a healthy way.
Right. Yeah. Would you say one of the phrases that I always share is, we go to reduce anxiety. We have to go from trying to play the game of life from the outside in. as in, which so many people are trying to do, where they're like, okay, well, all I got to do is just check this box and this box and this box and make this person happy and get to the bottom of this to-do list. And I got to take care of all these things out here and then I'll feel good. And that strategy never works. Yep. And so what you've done very clearly is flip the script, and now you're playing the game of life from the inside out, yep, which is great. So what are some of the key belief shifts that you now have about yourself? Like, what are the things that you've decided, like, this is what I believe about my own self-worth, and how are you feeling that self-esteem so sustainably now?
I believe that I know that I am good enough. I know that I'm worthy of love. I know that I'm worthy of respect. I know that my boundaries are worthy of being respected, and that it's kind of a case of, before, if I said no to somebody and they were upset with me, I would get upset. Whoop.
You're okay. And just a little glitch. Yeah.
Okay. And feel guilty. And now it's more a case of, I can say no. And if they don't understand or accept that, it's okay, because I'm still nurturing myself.
Right. So you went from believing that you need something from out here, from other people, like their approval or validation, to now going, no, I've got everything I need in here, basically, and not that you're like living on an island. You're probably feeling that your relationships are even better because now there's not all that tension. Let's talk about that a little bit more. So how have your relationships shifted, and what do you think has been responsible for that?
I think that people were surprised when I said no, and now I don't use the word emphatically no a lot, but I step back from things. Right. So I used to volunteer for everything, and it would be like, yep, I can do this, and yep, I can do that. And now it's a case of, as I'm finishing projects and someone will say to me, well, would you mind doing, taking this on? Nope. I have this, and this I need to wrap up, and I really can't manage that at this point in time. And not so it's not an outright no, but it's just like, my boundary is, I've got my plate full. I can't do it now.
Right. And so one thing I want to do, because I think that for a lot of people hearing this may sound, for somebody who's brand new, like, think of somebody who's in your position just a couple of months ago, right? Hearing this conversation to them would almost seem like very like, well, yeah, but how do you do that? And one of the things that I really want people to get out of this experience that Sandie did is we have this whole framework that we teach that we call a values clarification. And basically that's what you're kind of saying that you've done in this whole process, Sandie, is before, what you valued most, or what you were chasing after all the time were things in the realm of achievement, approval, certainty. I got to make it all a particular way, right? And some things that we chase after, we deem to be the most important, as in we say to ourselves, I have to get these things first. I have to be perfect. I got to please everybody. I got to be totally certain. And then and only then will I allow myself to feel good enough to feel happy. And when we play that game, it becomes like running on a treadmill, because you'll never reach the target. And so many people listening have, without them even realizing it, they have something they're chasing after that is probably never really going to be able to be graspable, right? Like 100% certainty is a common one. I just listed them a second ago. Feeling perfect, feeling like everyone approves of you. Those are the really common ones. And so the thing that I want you guys to hear, and what Sandie's saying, is what she really did was she changed what was most important in her life. Yep. So instead of, I'm going to chase after all these things, she now has decided, no, I'm not chasing after that anymore. I'm not putting my energy there. Yes, I will contribute. Yes, I will connect with people. Yes, I will put my energy out into the world, but I'm not going to make my own happiness and my own self-worth contingent on my contributions. I'm not going to make my self-worth and happiness contingent on whether people react to me the way I want them to react. So she's become the one in charge of how she feels. And what that really comes from is a change of values. So tell me, maybe just kind of in your own words, like what, or you could remind me from what you did on that assignment, like what are those new things kind of at the top of your list? What are the things that you now have decided are most important?
Love, contribution. Those are my two main ones.
Right. And then I think you had health as well.
Yep, health is in there. because my health was being affected by, not loving myself, not contributing in a healthy way.
Exactly.
So those are my main things. And then I'm trying to think what the rest I have listed down. I don't think certainty is on there anymore, because I truly believe, like you said, there's no certainty is a limiting belief by trying to be certain of things. And there really is, if nothing else, I've realized in life that there's nothing certain anymore.
Sure. Sure.
But satisfaction is in there. But I get all of that by loving myself, loving my people around me, and by contributing in a healthy way. It just kind of comes back to you. So you feel that love, you feel that satisfaction. And as a result of that, my health has also improved. So it's kind of like they're all intertwined, because once you're achieving one of them, it's kind of a trickle down effect for me.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So she's got a virtuous cycle going now instead of the vicious cycle, because the vicious cycle is, okay, I got to work so much to meet all these expectations. Now that I'm working so much, I'm exhausted. Now I got to make sure everybody's pleased, but I'm exhausted, so my fuse is shorter. Now, oh gosh, now I just said something I didn't want to say to that person. Now they're upset. Oh God, right? It becomes vicious, where it's constantly losing, losing, losing. Now it's virtuous, where it's like, well, I don't have to get it perfect.
Right.
Now you feel like you're winning in a lot more situations. Yep. And as you feel like you're winning, your energy returns, your self-esteem returns. As your self-esteem returns, the relationships improve. Right. So it all be good. I know life is going to be perfect, and that was never the goal, but you're now moving in an upward direction. Beautiful, really awesome example. So, and that's the key thing I want you guys to see, is that this is what happens when you get to the real root of the issue. Because had you done medications as well to try to reduce? Yeah. And so this is the thing, right? If we introduce medications, it can maybe mute how you feel a little bit. But if Sandie is still spending her whole life trying to be perfect and trying to get approval and trying to be super achiever and, trying to get everything exactly just so, she's going to get stressed out and anxious no matter how many medications she has in her system. Now that she's actually said, no, my self-love and my self-worth and my happiness is most important to me, we knock out all of those intrusive thoughts. It's gone. Like that old stuff is not there anymore, because she's no longer, her nervous system quite literally is no longer prioritizing it. And that's why it takes a couple months to get used to it. So I'm curious, speaking a little bit more, let's say like tactically, right? Like, were there any specific changes that you made either in kind of your daily lifestyle, or just, anything like that people could maybe kind of sink their teeth into to kind of get like some quick wins? Do you have any like recommendations like that?
I definitely, the rumble strip, once I finally got the hang of it, that definitely was a good tool for me, because it helped to prep me to think positively, and to turn the negatives into the positives. And then again, for me, it just, as trite as it may sound, getting that one limiting belief that I had, for people, I tell, do the work. I know you talk about it a lot, but commit yourself to the program and do it. And once I started, it was like, okay, I like this. I want to do more, because once you start feeling a little bit good, want to feel a lot good.
Yes. And how quickly did you start to feel like, oh, you know what? Maybe I can be in control of how I feel. Maybe I can do this. How quickly did that occur for you?
Once we cracked through that last limiting belief, there was nothing to stop me.
Right.
So what was that?
And what was, in your words, what was that big limiting belief, the one that you keep referring to?
That I wasn't good enough.
I see. So just holistically that you're not going to. So you have now. So that is really radical change, right? Which has created radical results, because your new belief is, yes, I am, and you just affirm that universally. Yes. So very powerful. That's what we would call like a global belief, right? Because that belief is going to shape how you look at the entire world and your entire identity. So really powerful. Most people are stuck in beliefs that are global, but in the negative. Things like I'll never be good enough. Right, something of that nature. So really powerful. Awesome. So, what does life look like now, into the future? What are you, well, first of all, I guess, compared to 3 months ago, what were you imagining the future to be like? And then what are you imagining the future to be like now?
Compared to 3 months ago, I don't know that I was imagining a future. It was just every day putting my head down and getting through the day. Now I actually enjoy going to work, but it's okay to leave it behind at the end of the day. My future is I'm looking forward to retirement, and being with my grandkids and my husband and contributing in a different way, but knowing that it's okay to do that also. I mention retirement to my boss periodically, and he just keeps telling me no. And
Right.
and like, this is your timeline. You got years. This is your timeline. But I couldn't look at that positively before.
So before, were you just planning on being an indentured servant forever until you
Pretty
drop
much,
dead?
until there just was no plan of a retirement or no solid thought. And now I have a date and I have a plan, and this is it.
Right. Good for you. That's really great. One thing I really, really want you guys who are watching this to really get about Sandie, which is really remarkable. You, in many ways, have been an exceptional role model in this. Every interview we do with a client is great because everyone's got different strengths and characteristics. But one thing that really shines out in you is you rose your standards, right? You got very clear through this process of what you are willing to tolerate and what you are no longer willing to tolerate.
Correct.
And getting very clear on what you are no longer willing to tolerate has made all the difference. That's maybe the biggest difference is you've raised your standards, first of all, with yourself, it sounds like pretty clearly, right? Where you say, hey, you know what? I'm not going down that train of thought anymore. That's not helping me. That's the first big thing people need to do.
Right.
Raised your standards in your relationships, what you're willing to tolerate and not tolerate there, probably your health, different things of that nature. So that's the big difference. That's where change actually happens, guys, because so many people have the quote I always share with people is this: we don't get the mental health that we want, we get the mental health that we tolerate. Everybody wants to live with peace of mind. Everybody wants to get the anxiety and the depression out of their life. Everybody wants that. But very few people are willing to do what it takes and to learn what you have to learn to make that happen, to elevate that standard. And you're one of those few people. So I just want people to see that you've got a strength in you that's really, really powerful. But it's also like, I'm seeing in you like an openness, like it's like a beautiful, like feminine strength, right? Like your heart is full too at the same time, as well as being very strong and very clear. So that's really great. One last thing I want to touch on before we let you go, because I know that this is an area a lot of people are having challenges with, is the marriage, the relationship side of things. Now, that wasn't the biggest issue, right? But that was, definitely a pressing thing. And you had the good sense and clarity to, we got on the same page right away in the sense that we knew that we got to deal with the mental health first and foremost. And then let's deal with any residual stuff going on in the relationship. So just, really briefly share a little bit about like, how was the mental state you were in before affecting the relationship? And then what is the pattern now? What's changed?
It affected it because being in that negative state, all of our communication was negative. There wasn't a positive communication there. And once I actually started to see more positive and become more positive, you and I had talked about it, and you kind of helped me script the positive way of being able to approach my husband and turning that into my way of doing it, but a positive approach. It just makes a world of difference. I mean, just the same as anything else in life. Once you take the negative out and you become very loving and positive, even if it's about a problem or an issue, it still turns out to be a good thing.
Right. Absolutely. And so one thing they think is really key is when people get into that really negative kind of vicious cycle with their partners, it's really, really tempting for people to get into that state of almost like, well, I don't need to change, they need to change kind of attitude. And one of the things that you were willing to do very bravely and it worked well for you is always what I advise, which is we can't complain about what response we're not getting because we're not in control of that. But what we can control is the energy and the intention that we pour in to the relationship. And, we live in a world of action and reaction, right? For every action, there is a reaction. Every relationship is a cybernetic loop. So by changing the input, you got new output. And I was surprised because I gave you like one little strategy on one call. And to your credit, you implemented it without a question. You're like, cool, let's do it. And then we chatted the next week, and I was expecting you to be like, well, it kind of worked. And you're like, no, yep, things are better. So that's how quickly it can change.
Yeah, because by maintaining that level of positiveness, not just having one moment of it, but by trying to change all of my communication and being mindful of how I communicated, not just about the issue that we were having a struggle over, but just an everyday conversation. I didn't realize how negative I had become.
Sure.
So by becoming more positive and sustaining that, he realized that, oh, wait, something's happening here. She's changing. I need to maybe look at. And we've talked about it, and he really saw that positive change. And it made him feel more positive.
That's great. I think that's such a very important thing for people listening to realize, because so many people get in this headspace of thinking, yeah, I need to deal with my mental health, but I can't right now because my marriage is such and such, or I can't because work is so crazy, or I can't because my kids are doing A, B, and C, and I got to deal with the mental health last. No, you got to deal with the mental health first, because when you deal with the mental health first, typically 9 times out of 10, all of those other problems either go away or they dramatically get better, hugely. And so, anybody who is looking to make their whole life easier, the last thing you'd want to do is delay getting your mental health in order, right? That'd be the important thing, because you said it beautifully. You said both of you were in that negative state, right? A relationship is just both of your habitual energies multiplied by each other. So two people in negative states, really, really negative, nasty relationships. So we change one of those ingredients. We change one to be lighter, freer, more peace of mind. It will absolutely change the relationship or the career. And you've knocked so many, you've scored points in all these different areas of your life. You've killed many birds with one stone just by getting the mental health under control. So really great. I am incredibly grateful to have met you and gotten to know you. You're a beautiful human being. Your soul is is fantastic. First of all, you're a healer. You work in the medical field. So your career and your mission is to heal people. And now just in your relationships, you've got more of that energy, and the real you is shining out now, which is really great to see. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Is there anything you'd want to share to someone in a boat similar to where you were at 3 or 4 months ago? Just any final words of wisdom or thoughts for them?
Just to do the work, even when, like you said, even when you don't want to, just put your head down and get the work done, because it really does pay off. But be honest with yourself. Don't just pay lip service to it. You have to be honest with yourself, and it really will pay off in the end.
Right. Good. Yeah, there's a big difference between doing the work and doing enough to convince ourselves that we are doing the work. And I've been in that cycle before too. So good distinction. Awesome. Well, Sandie, I'm sure it's not goodbye. It's just see you later, but have fun living your life, and feel free to check in with us from time to time. And I always love to hear good news, but I'm so excited for the years ahead of you and what's in store for you and your husband. I wish you guys all the best.
Thank you so much.
All right, Sandie, take care for now.
You too. Bye-bye.